This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, Heather, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, November 27, 1994, one of the greatest Grey Cups of all time happened in Vancouver as the hometown BC Lions took on the Baltimore Football Club. In a Grey Cup that went down to the last play of the game. Now you'd be thinking yourself, Baltimore in the CFL? How did this happen? Well, we go back a few years. And the CFL wanted to stay afloat. Needed to stay afloat with financial problems and all that. So they decided to permit American teams to try to be part of the CFL and all that. So their CFL USA expansion thing started in '93 with a few teams, including one in Las Vegas. If memory serves me right, can't remember what the '93 CFL season was like for teams. I think Sacramento and Las Vegas had teams and all that. Well, they didn't have any NFL teams, and well, they had like college teams. But anyway, the U.S. would expand heavily in the '94 season. As the CFL would do some. So anyway, Sacramento was the only team in '93, and then they would add Las Vegas, Shreveport, and Baltimore. So anyway, now Baltimore was trying to become the Colts, but unfortunately they couldn't because of trademark infringement suit filed by the Indianapolis Colts. Even though they wanted to go back to their roots in Baltimore. So it didn't work out that way. So the two groups so the 12 teams were divided into two divisions, the East and the West. And it was simple. It was the top four in each division would go on to play in the playoffs. In the West, Calgary was 15-3, the best team in the West, with Edmonton, BC, and Saskatchewan going second, third, and fourth respectively. So that was what they wanted. Saskatchewan had 22 points. Sacramento was 9-1, not bad. They had 19, and Las Vegas was 5-13. The weird thing about Sacramento and Las Vegas in those two seasons was that they would have definitely qualified for the East Division playoffs. Heck, Sacramento's 19 points would put them third in the East. And Las Vegas would be ahead of the fourth place team. The Bombers were the top team in the East at 13-5. Baltimore was 12-6. The Argos were third at 7-11. And the Rough Riders, Ottawa, were 4-14, yet they made the playoffs because Hamilton was 4-14 and Shreveport was 3-15. So BC went into Edmonton and shocked the Eskimos by 1 point, and then went to Calgary, and again on a Darren Flutie touchdown with not much time left, BC beat Calgary to go to the Super Bowl against the Grey Cup against Baltimore, who narrowly beat Winnipeg 14-12 to win the East. So it was just unbelievable how Baltimore did such a thing. And I know they were called the Stallions when Grey Cup '95 happened, but I wish that Colts, they could have just said Stallions. No one was going to complain. They didn't complain in '95. But regardless, it was US versus Canada and all that. Stupidly, as a 9-year-old, I actually wanted Baltimore to win, thinking it would be cool to see an American team win a CFL thing. Of course, I didn't know much about CFL, and my love for the CFL didn't blossom for a few more years, until I was 11. Regardless, it was huge. Baltimore beat Winnipeg to get here, and BC beat Calgary. So yeah, those two teams would be huge and all that. So anyway, the first quarter saw one field goal by Louis Passaglio to make it 3-0 BC. Tracy Ham, who was a good quarterback for both Baltimore and subsequently Montreal, ran the ball in for a touchdown to make it 7-3. And then, just 40 seconds later, a pick six happened for the Colts as Walton made one of the great plays, and then he actually lateraled it to Alvin Walton lateraled it to Carl Anthony for the touchdown, and Carl Anthony, I do believe, went to the CFL, didn't he? NFL. Well, I guess not. But anyway, yeah, Carl Anthony was just good, and it made it 14-3 Baltimore. However, BC would get a pick six of their own thanks to Donald Gordon making it a score. Igubuge kicked a field goal to make it 17-10 Baltimore at the half. Third quarter, Donald Igubuge with another field goal, and then BC came back. Danny McManus came in off the bench for Kent Austin and engineered a touchdown run. Pasegula kicked the field goal, and it was 20-20. It was a tie game. Then the defenses took over, forcing 3 field goals in that fourth quarter. So it was 23-23, and then Louis Pasegula had a 37-yard field goal attempt. All he had to do was put it through, and BC had the lead, but he missed. Unfortunately, Baltimore did not do any better on offense and had to punt the ball back to BC with excellent field position. And then Pasegula had a chance to kick a field goal from 38 yards out. The ball was at 31. In the CFL, the yardage for a field goal is like whatever yard line you're at plus 7 instead of the NFL's plus 17 for one main reason. The 10 for the NFL is that the fact that the NFL puts its goalpost on the back of the end zone, which is 10 yards away, and in the CFL, as it is today, the goalposts are on the goal line. So basically, they're right there. So Pasegula had a chance for a 38-yard field goal and booted it through. Big win. BC wins the championship on home soil. And Louis Pasegula's kick would be famous. Now, if you watched it on ESPN Classic Canada, you didn't watch the CBC feed of the game with Don Whitman. You watched the ESPN2 feed with a young Gus Johnson. You have barbecue, but you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings. That's one of the first things that comes into my mind when I think about Gus Johnson. And yes, that famous Gus Johnson who does games for Fox and, brings Fox college football to life. So anyway, BC wins. Now, the funny thing is that BC was not the home team. They actually gave the Eastern Division the home team designation, which was weird because BC actually had what they call a fan meter and all that to pump up noise. But what was weird is that this famous American guy by the name of Crazy George, the guy who thinks he invented the wave in 1981, actually was a BC guy and banged his drum and all that. So the CFL decided to make Crazy George do his stuff instead of the fan meter. That's if I remember correctly. Anyhow, Louis Pasegula was given the Grey Cup MVP trophy, which was kind of weird. So, anyway. John Millington was the most valuable Canadian for BC. Unfortunately, it was actually revealed that Carl Anthony of the Baltimore football team actually was named MVP because the vote had to take place before the final few minutes of the game, and of course Pasegula kicked the field goal. So Pasegula was actually not the MVP. He was given the most valuable Canadian, I believe, as a make-do, if you will. BC's defense was good because Mike Pringle only had 71 yards. And Robert Drummond had 38, so only 109 yards. The Lions' tandem of Corey Philpott and Sean Millington went for 194. And actually, Baltimore's defense was exempt from the CFL's import rule, meaning you had to have a limited enough amount of Americans on your Canadian squad. They were made solely of American players and all that. So anyway, the Lions had 4 sacks on Baltimore. So anyway, it was huge and all that. So anyway, BC won the title. And Canadian football fans can breathe a sigh of relief. Until next year. the next year as Baltimore became the Stallions. Yeah, they should have been a Stallions in '94. I don't think no one would have batted an eye. And went on to win the Grey Cup against Calgary, although Calgary was heavily favored. And I picked Calgary to win because I'm like, Calgary's heavily favored and all that. I learned my lesson. Unfortunately, Baltimore made me learn another lesson. Should have went with your guy. But I was 10 years old at the time. So anyway, we all know about what happened to Baltimore, as I say in many videos, that CFL USA's expansion things crumbled. Baltimore was going to gain an NFL team. They didn't have time for the CFL anymore. So the CFL team was turned inside out. But fortunately, Montreal, which had a CFL franchise as late as 1987, but they had financial problems, were allowed to get the team as the team was sold to Jim Spanos and his Montreal Empire. So Montreal got their CFL team back, and it took till 2002 to win the Grey Cup for Montreal, but you know, they got some key players. They got Ham, they got Pringle, they got Calvillo. So Montreal still had the power and all that. And I became an Alouettes fan in 1999 after Doug Flutie tore my heart and left the Argos for the CFL and the NFL. I know it was his decision and all that, but I was heartbroken. So I decided to switch to Montreal in my 14-year-old state of mind. I've been an Alouettes fan since, and hopefully stay an Alouettes fan. But anyway, Baltimore thought they had it, but Louis Bosanquet's kick, one of the greatest plays, if not the greatest play in BC Lions history. Anyhow, I'm Jeff. I'm going to do